For the latest top tips, reviews and advice, please subscribe below.
Hello and welcome to Attwoolls Outdoors with me, Mike. Today I'm going to use a bit of a review video on a product from Isabella. So with me today I've got the Isabella Minor Dawn. The Minor Dawn essentially is a small, compact porch awning that's designed really for people who don't want an awful lot of room but don't want to compromise on quality. Apparently it's something you could probably put up in not so much winter months, but apparently you're not going to need a huge amount of space. You could probably spend the majority of your time necessarily in the actual caravan itself, or just want a little bit of extra space. So it's one of the smallest porches that kind of Isabella do, but it's got a whole kind of Isabella ethos into it itself. So the overall, it's about 2 meters deep by about 240 wide, and actually, to be fair, in terms of the fabric they use, you know, as we would come to expect with Isabella, it's second to none. So we've got this beautiful kind of acrylic fabric. So essentially it's a dope dye material. What I mean by dope dye, it means is the way the process of the fabric is done. So rather than necessarily colouring the fabric when it's sort of woven, is they go down to the actual thread itself. Now what this does is give you kind of a better quality and better sort of coloration of the fabric itself. Best analogy I can probably use is basically it's difference between, say, a carrot and a radish. A carrot being dope dyed, essentially the colours all the way through because they're just dyeing the thread. When you do more like a batch dye, essentially you get more like a radish effect where you've got sort of colour on the outside but it's purely white on the inside. And you certainly see that maybe when the life of the awning goes on, it's basically open to more UV sunlight. What you see is it essentially will fade quicker, whereas certainly for a dope dye you get that coloration all the way through. So as it strips out the outer layer, you still got that sort of main colour all the way through. Being an acrylic fabric as well, it's really breathable, so it makes it perfect for kind of that small little section. Allows air to pass through. You get sort of certainly a reduced amount of condensation in the awning as well. As you'd come to expect with Isabella, it's the nitty-gritty details that really do make it what it is. And it's not necessarily something that you're going to make a one-off purchase. It's a very considered purchase for it itself. It comes as standard with the basically the carbon frame, which is a really nice lightweight but yet strong material frame. So it packs down to a good sort of size, easily transferable. And if you want to put up for shorter spells, you can more than happily do so. And there's no reason you couldn't really use this for a touring awning. It's ideal for that, a bit of extra space with a table and chair set and such. The carbon frame itself has a really nice kind of Clasper system, so it's very easy to adjust it. So you've just got a central kind of open part there, squeezes the kind of the carbon itself, keeps it really nice and structurally strong. And one thing about that carbon in many ways is actually it's got a bit more flex to it, so you get a little bit of give, which you need in those kind of weathers, but it's still very robust itself. To fixing it against the Caravan, you've got this really nice sort of fix-on pad as well. Again, very easy system, and it's beading along the top track of the rail. And it just presses against you, so you can easily pop that on, pop the hooks directly on, and get a firm pressure kind of directly against the Caravan. Externally, we've got 2 nice big mesh windows as well, and even like I said, the quality of the mesh you can see, it's really nicely done. When you want that sort of don't want to have that necessarily that airflow in the actual awning itself, you've got these PVC blinds which you can zip down, and not only do they zip down along the sides, but they actually zip down along the bottom, which you don't see very often. And that's sort of the level of coverage you get. Stops any wind coming directly up it. 2 doors / windows on either side, so it means you can happily enter regardless of which way you're going. And you've got the kind of classic Isabella porthole, you know, which you'll only see with Isabella. It's almost again a little of a flagship to those people who kind of go for that Isabella product. You've got a really nice sort of canopy built onto it again, so it means that if it's raining or whatever, you've got that nice coverage. Really easy to obviously install quite naturally, and you've still got the little simple click frames there. Again, beautiful crystal clear PVC window at the front, and we've got those lovely detailed curtains behind, and we'll look at those in a minute. The front panel itself can actually be completely removed, so if you want to just almost like a canopy in the sides, it can obviously do that as well. It means also that in theory you can take that out if you want to reduce the overall weight, so when feeding it through the rail, if it's a little bit too heavy for you, it just kind of helps with that. You've got additional kind of storm points as well, so if you want extra guide points, you can put those in obviously at your own discretion. And then you basically, the best thing to do is, if you wanted any additional bracing, you would probably wrap it around the frame and then tie it down to get so. Other things to mention, the fact that we've got a really nice big mesh vent at the top here again to help allow with the airflow, and it's more things like the little clasps down the bottom. So what you've got is a really nice adjustable, so it's a bit of a elasticated print, so you can get a really nice sort of part to it as well. It keeps it looking really taut. So that's probably one thing it's worth mentioning, is that when you've got something like this, which is actually European made in comparison to made in the Far East, is the tolerance levels is very, very slender. It's imperative they make it right every single time, and that's one of the joys of actually it's made by Isabella, and from the factory process to they basically transport it over to themselves, and even the aftercare, they take care of it, is all based kind of the aftercare in the UK as well. So if you have any issue, again, it's very quick and easy to fix, and they can manage their own timeline. So it's all these little things that kind of crop into why what you pay for when you do get in Isabella. Other things to mention in terms of the quality side of things is that all of the seams are basically triple folded and double stitched. So again, it's reinforced. All of the pegging points internally, they are actually reinforced as well, and we'll see that in a bit later on. And it's also then stitched in a way, in kind of a kite way, which is one of the strongest ways to do it. In pole sleeves at the top here, where we possibly might get some wear, we've also got some additional reinforcement located there, and pretty much on this, actually wherever there is a pole will meet the fabric to make sure it's really secured. There's basically an extra bit of fabric there as well. We run with a sort of a 295 gram material, so it's really, again, a good strong acrylic fabric, but got a really nice handle to it. We've got sort of the Dawn material again, so it looks really quite sharp, and actually from a colour point of view, I think I do quite like it, to be fair. But I'll tell you what, let's talk for a few more features that the miniature Dawn has to offer as we have a look at it on the inside. So now in the Minor Dawn, you can kind of get a bit more an idea of kind of how kind of cozy it really is in here. Certainly that kind of 2 metre depth gives you enough room to get kind of in and out of the caravan quite happily. When you've got a table and chairs, it does make it a little bit tight, but it's perfect for kind of the more couples kind of idea. Having that kind of very straight front gives you the benefit that table section go really nice up and tight, and give you, to be fair, actually still a good metre or so away from the van. So you happily have the caravan step quite nice and neatly down there. The fabric in here looks really, really quite smart. You've got that kind of pattern on the roof itself. It makes it feel quite light inside. Now, in terms of the actual things like the zips, for example, so Isabella used kind of an oversized spiral chain zip. So it's really quite nice, runs really smoothly, and because it's spiral chain, it makes going around the corners a lot easier. They're actually, in fact, the teeth on it is actually counted as well. So they make, again, there's probably a testament to how kind of nitty gritty and details they like to go down to, is making sure that by physically quality controlling and counting necessarily the zips and how many it should be, it allows them to documentate, and if anything happens or changes throughout the years, they've got it down to the point. So if they need a replacement panel for the front section, for argument's sake, it's that down to that sort of attention to detail that really runs throughout this. We talked about reinforcement, and we've got that located. So not only you've got reinforced panels on kind of where the joints is and where potentially that the fabric might rub, but also there's a strip of fabric located, again, right next to the carbon frame, not only running up down to the apex, but also running backwards. So we've got running back all the way up to the top as well. And again, it counts that kind of longevity of the awning, which, again, when you're paying a good amount of money for, you want to make sure that the quality is there and it's going to last. Other things to mention is things like the curtains. So the curtains got a really nice kind of track system, which enables you to take the curtains on and off quite easily. So essentially it just kind of lifts off, and you've got a separate sort of runner. So we call it like trains and then the tracks in many ways. So initially you'll have to put it on to start with, but you can pop them on, pop them off as you go. And the joy is actually you can actually have the curtains, the pattern facing outside or internally, depending on what you want to do with it. So again, that works really well. The little clasps down the bottom, your retainers, again, poppers, so it makes it really easy to kind of open and close it and keep it all nice and neat. when you've got a sloping side like we have with here, there is additional kind of, we'll call it like a lace that allows kind of the curtain to be nice and firmly against it. That way it's not kind of hanging out as such. Optional extra things like obviously the lighting as well to kind of create a really nice ambience into the actual awning. But you've got great PVC windows, and when we're talking sort of down low, we've got a really nice sort of PVC mud skirt down here as well to get that sort of longevity, but also it's just a bit more rugged and a nicer handle. In a way, in terms of sealing it against the actual Caravan, what you can find is actually there's a physical back pole, which is basically built into the frame. So at the top point up here, we've got kind of an adjustment that you peg it through, and then essentially it's almost like a leg comes down and then gets that pegging point. Now, throughout the actual frame itself, you've got the ability of adjustment and height. So it doesn't matter kind of if you're on uneven ground, you can really quite happily accommodate it. And because you've got, think of it almost like a long bit of fabric, and there's several kind of reinforced eyelets, you can make sure you get the spike directly in the eyelet, extend up. So what you find is you've got a fixation point on the ground, and then on the top there's a spike directly through the roof. So it means that it gets really strong and sturdy. And again, with the tolerance that we talked about earlier, in terms of making sure it fits properly, you can make sure it's going to absolutely stand up. And that's where, probably in maybe a lesser quality kind of awning, you find that you might need more external tension points because you haven't got that same sort of rigidity in that minimal amount of tolerance in the actual fabric as well. The back system, the way it's going to fit and fold, so only we've got that leg that goes down, and then Isabella got their patented kind of sort of clip system, so it allows you to actually clip again the fabric to the awning part. So this clip will kind of just clip in and out, feeds onto a beading directly on the back, and then actually clips on to give you that really strong sort of bits together. That's linked up with a nice foam pad, again to help sort of thrust that against the Caravan and minimise the draft you've got coming down the side. Small little details, things like the clips, for example, are all easy to use. There's a clip at the top there, so you can actually get that sort of swing and adjustment quite nice and easily. And we've already talked about the clasps that necessarily allow you to extend the awning itself. And we've done a generic kind of pitching video on kind of a porch awning, showing you how that's going to pitch and also pack away as well. But in fact, let's pick the camera up now and we'll kind of talk for a few more features that the miniature has. I'll also try and get a bit more of a feel inside of here. So, like I said, nice, small, compact. Got a really nice kind of ridge pole. You can probably see that mesh vent located at the top as well. And obviously the clasp we've got located down there. Very smooth kind of, and I really like the curtain pattern as well. Admittedly, we're looking on the inside of it, it's not quite as vibrant as, say, the backside. Then we've got that full kind of mesh built into there as well. And then, like I said, you can almost see the reinforcements, all the points. So we've got not only every single pegging point there, there's a reinforcement throughout it. And then we've got, we go into the very corner. We've got the actual adjustment system in there, but you can see how the skirt overlaps one another to kind of keep that sealing everything out. A little better around that side. Zips are really nicely done. Again, you've got a really big sort of oversized zip, and even the kind of door retainers are running kind of like a popper kind of design. But you can probably get a bit more of an idea about the clip system. So you can probably see, turn it around, the beading located down there, and how that kind of really smartly clips onto the awning. And at the top here, we've got that kind of clasp, just to kind of keep it all neat and tidy. As we kind of head out, we've also got ridge poles in the roof. And then, as we talked about, is also the spike that comes through the part there. And there's also an extra cowl then to stop the rain coming directly in. So again, you've got the fixation point at the top, fixation point at the bottom. That's probably a really good example. There you go. That's your kind of ladder system you've got down there. So you can alter the height. And you've got to run about 20 centimeters of play in from one side, you know, in the height there as well. So it allows you to kind of dictate what you want to do. A small little wing canopy located at the top there. It just kind of, again, just gives you a bit more runoff, so it gives you a bit more shelter from the door as we see it. And then the additional kind of canopy parts there, you've just got a little prong out. Admittedly, there's no kind of bar along the top there. It's something you have to when you go for something like the Magnum, which sort of next size up in sort of a 340. That's when you kind of look towards that side. But I think all in all, sits really well, made incredibly well, of course. But there's also the level of features you go to. I think really, it comes second to none. Additional ties here as well. So if you want this sort of stormy weather, you can give it a bit more of support. And you've got the kind of classic kind of Isabella porthole point. You can see that kind of foam pad, how nice and thick and firm that is, so you can really get that nice and tight to the awning. But if you have any more questions or queries, by all means, check the link below this video. It'll take you straight kind of through to our website where we've got more information about the product, as well as links in the video to other things we have in terms of pitching and packing videos. And if you want an itemised sort of detailed list of all the spec and everything we've kind of gone through the video, you can always check that out there, because there's an awful lot to get to through really. So, but all in all, I think it's a great awning, something like I said, necessary for the person who wants tip-top quality and the breathability side of things, whereas necessarily you probably won't see that in sort of the smaller porches elsewhere on the market. But any more information, of course, feel free to let us know. But that's our little video review on the Isabella Minor Dawn.